All right, let's talk about getting emasculated by women, aka getting castrated. Now, look, I know the first backlash I'm going to get is that a real man, all right, a true alpha doesn't allow himself to get emasculated by women. He doesn't allow himself to get castrated. And well, fine, as much as that might be true, and men with a high degree of self-regard will not tolerate disrespect or emasculation, I want to say that almost every woman these days will enact some kind of emasculating behavior. And secondly, the best of men are still prone to tolerating this because, well, most of it is very subtle and relationships aren't smooth rides. All right, if you do, in fact, want to make some headway in not falling prey to emasculation and want to learn how to cultivate more self-respect and various other relationship skills, check out the ebooks below. All right, they're linked in the description. They'll help you navigate the minefield that is modern day relationships, as well as help you get back in touch with your masculine core. All right, a little bit more on emasculating behavior before we go through the different ways that it shows up so you know what to look out for in your current relationship or the next time you commit to someone. So emasculation is basically the erosion of your masculine nature in order to make you weak, more pliable and controllable. However, this tactic actually backfires for women because as much as they believe that they'll get their needs better met through making you impotent, it creates so much relationship difficulties, not least her losing attraction for you as as your morale is weakened, as you lose touch with your sense of power and sovereignty. And this is kind of a cultural thing going on at the moment as well. Women are very loud and vocal across the internet in blaming men for not showing up in certain ways in relationships, all right? Or for perpetuating this toxic masculinity without them actually looking at what they're doing, okay? They're not wanting to look at their own toxic behavior. And more, I am beginning to see that this term, toxic masculinity, is actually a way to demean men and allow women to get off the hook without having to look at their own toxic behavior. If a man is checking out of a relationship, if he's no longer being the best version of himself, of course, this is his responsibility. It's important for him to work on his mindset, find purpose, overcome his self-sabotaging behavior, etc. But what I see is that very often he's the one getting blamed for checking out or, not being in his masculine power. But very rarely is it addressed how women are actually ruining a man's morale through her undermining him and denigrating his masculine strength. All right, and before we dive in, I just want to mention, and this is perhaps a little bit more towards the women who might be watching this, you need to understand that women have an immense power to uplift or motivate a man, okay? Or to do the exact opposite, okay? And although it's not the healthiest motive, having a woman he cares for in his life can be the biggest reason to carry on fighting through life. And when that woman then begins to denigrate him, make him feel small, this is such a big blow. And women really need to understand that how their man is fighting, how he's showing up, can very much be a reflection of the way you are treating him. And no one should be reliant on the affirmation of others to become a best version, all right, to keep fighting through, to keep on our mission, etc. And of course, the masculine does grow by challenge and through the tests that the woman gives him, these feminine tests, but there needs to be this distinction or discernment as to what is healthy challenge, okay, calling a man forward more into his power, and what is sheer emasculation, again, belittling him, okay, making him feel small and just eroding any sovereignty or confidence he has in himself. Enough preamble, how is this showing up? Well, the first one I want to talk about is character degrading, belittling, or mocking, all right? And this can come in just small little comments, okay? You pick apart parts of his personality or his character, and the worst thing a woman can do is to do this in public, all right? This is public humiliation, and at the very, very worst, in front of his friends, okay? I've even seen this with some of my friends, is his friends, your friends will pick up on, oh, your woman doesn't respect you. And that reflects badly on him. And so belittling can be all the ways that you criticize him or make him not feel good enough or point out his weaknesses. This basically is really damaging to a man's self-esteem. Now, the next way I want to talk about is mocking masculine traits. So if a man is assertive, if he is decisive, all right, if he has discernment, if he's embodying all of the masculine traits, okay, which make him have a sense of power. If these are made fun of, if these are criticized, mocked, whether it's physical strength, his emotional stoicism, assertiveness, again, you're going to make him feel self-conscious about this. And if there's a negative undertone, then he can very well start to shy away from those, all right? He feels like, okay, I'm not appreciated if I am embodying this masculine energy. So the next way is criticizing his competence or capabilities. And I think a lot of women have a habit of doing this, whether knowing it or not. But let's say he's doing some DIY work around the house and, he's not done the perfect job. Fair enough. But she'll lay into him and nitpick at that, okay? Or maybe it's his driving skills, all right? Whatever it is, but if this is just constant, like, feedback is you're not good enough, you could be better. Of course, there is that healthy challenge, but the message the guy's going to get is whatever I do, I'm just not good enough, and this woman doesn't appreciate it, okay? So watch out for being belittled for your abilities, your skills, your decision making, as that will just undermine your confidence and sense of competence. And related to this, the next thing is comparison with other men, whether it's a neighbor, family member, worst, an ex, or a co-worker. If a woman is then comparing your abilities, or your decision making, or your masculine strength with another man, again, this is just gonna eat into his confidence and his sense of being appreciated, right? Men want to be appreciated. They show up best in relationships when they feel appreciated. And to be compared to another man is very, very castrating. Now, of course, the challenge then is to be the best version of yourself where you're not compared, all right, in that way. But this is a tactic that can be weaponized against men to make him feel small. And again, women can do this knowingly or unknowingly. All right, the next thing is undermining financial contributions. Now, of course, we live in a gender equal world, or more or less, and who is the breadwinner can vary differently according to whose relationship it is. But of course, men, through our social conditioning, a lot of our self-esteem is tied to our financial success or our status. And if a woman is constantly undermining or belittling a man's earning power or financial success, this will affect his sense of self-worth. All right, the next one is emotional manipulation. Now, this is a whole other topic, which I'm going to make another video. I will link it up here in the corner. But you need to understand that a woman can use her emotionality or guilt to control a man, and this will erode his sense of autonomy and self-respect. Okay, when she's throwing tantrums or she's gaslighting, whatever it is, there's a lot of resistance. A man is gonna back off and think, okay, I can't get my needs or my request or uphold my boundaries in this relationship without there being a shitstorm, okay? And over time, he's gonna be conditioned in a way to hey, it's actually better to just hold back, it's, save the headache. And when he's kind of been pushed into that position, he's going to lose his sense of autonomy or power in the relationship. And again, it's just going to be a huge dent on his masculinity. All right, the next thing is sexual rejection or criticism. Of course, sex should always be consensual, and a man needs to do his work in making a woman desire him, having sex, i.e. creating sexual tension, flirting, foreplay, etc. But if a woman is rejecting sexual advances as a power game, this is going to have an effect on a man's confidence, his self-esteem, and his power. Also, on top of that, if a woman is criticizing his sexual performance, like, oh, that wasn't good enough, or you can't get hard enough, or oh, you're always ejaculating too soon. Again, these are all things a man must take responsibility for. There is a ton of information out there to learn. There's coaches, etc. But again, if this is weaponized and not spoken about in a kind and loving way, this is a surefire way to really, really have a negative impact on a man's confidence, his sense of masculine strength, because so much of our self-esteem, our sense of power is tied to our sexuality. And this is a very dangerous place because women know that they can weaponize it. And on top of that, if they compare you unfavorably to past partners, this can deeply wound a man's sense of masculinity. Also related to this is not allowing him to take the lead in bed. All right. Now, of course, in sexual dynamics, there needs to be a lot of trust, and a man needs to embody trusted leadership for a woman to want to follow the lead or submit, however it gets played out. So do bear that in mind. But if there's just this like constant resistance, backlash, no giving up. Okay. Another way emasculation takes place is through constant nitpicking or criticism around a man's choice of actions or how he's completed a task. All right. So again, if there's a DIY project, she'll like look for all the tiny little imperfections. Or if a man has taken a course of action, decisive course of action, she'll criticize him for making these choices, rather than a more positive approach is to just inquire why someone did the thing they did and the way they did it, or ask why he chose the course of action he decided. Another one, which is a really big one, is using weaknesses against him. Okay, and this is a big topic because so much in the kind of cultural rhetoric at the moment is that men need to be more vulnerable, especially in relationships. However, vulnerabilities which do get shared later get turned on him. Okay, and this can be really confusing for men. But this is a very powerful way that women can emasculate men, is that they find out some of your insecurities, some of your weaknesses, and then they'll weaponize that against you, use it as a leverage again to manipulate you. Another big one is actually them trying to change you as a person. And I know Connor Beaton from Man Talks has spoken about this, all right? And this is basically them giving you the feeling that you are not good enough as you are, all right? They'll constantly be nagging you to do this or change this behavior or get better at that. And it's sort of like a balance, because although like we do want this feedback from a partner, is more often than not you get this negative feedback and criticism of like, you're not lovable as you are. And it's lacking this positive affirmation and appreciation, which is basically what any partner needs to feel loved in a relationship. So although well-intended, it can have the opposite effect, where the man isn't feeling love for who he is. And if a guy has kind of toxic shame wounds, this really exacerbates that. Often you'll attract someone who does this as an opportunity to heal that wound. That was very much the case for me. But I think women do need to understand that a man is not going to change from being nagged into change, all right? When he's given the space, and Connor does talk about this, where he's given the space to be who he is and he's loved and appreciated, that actually is a more fertile ground for him to then go on and do the work. All right, another big one, this could be synonymous with emasculation, is controlling behavior, all right? So this stems from a lack of trust from women. Sometimes it's something the man has done in the relationship. Other times it can be father wound stuff, wounds with the masculine, which is very common, with women. There has been a lot of collective pain inflicted on women from men, but this will play out as them kind of trying to control you, putting restrictions on what you can do, what you can eat, who you can hang out with. This is a real constraint on one's sense of sovereignty and autonomy, which is basically what a man needs to feel masculine, all right? To feel in his masculine power, he needs to feel sovereign and autonomous in the sense of like, hey, I'm living life on my terms. I'm doing what I want unapologetically. And if a woman is coming in and just putting loads of restrictions on him, sure, it's important to dig into that and see why that is and how you can create more trust in the relationship. But it's important to know that this is a huge way of emasculating men. And this plays out where a woman is wanting to take charge of all the decisions. She doesn't let the man lead, all right, and leaves no room for the man's input. And this makes him feel powerless. All right, another way men can feel emasculated, and I don't think this has actually been spoken about enough, is how there's this expectation that the man must operate like a woman in the relationship. And this is especially around emotions or expressing emotions, handling emotions. That often women demand he be more emotional, right? Without understanding that men are kind of fundamentally different. And that this demand actually brings him more into his feminine, okay? And this can basically kill off any polarity, any attraction the woman has for him, and then she's left confused. But it's also like, this isn't how men operate, and the lack of understanding and these kind of skewed expectations and kind of being pulled into the feminine is, well, exactly, taking him out of his masculine, so he's going to feel emasculated. All right, another way that men feel emasculated or get emasculated in relationships is when a woman kind of withholds her feminine nature, whether it's nurturing, whether playful or joy. This kind of stuff, if she's very much in her masculine, and of course there can be many reasons which can be on the fault of the man for that, but if she's very much in her masculine energy and she's withholding this kind of softness, this playfulness, this nurturing stuff, the polarity weakens, okay, and the relationship can feel kind of heavy, all right? There's less and less lightheartedness, all right? And if a man is, constantly with his woman in her masculine energy, often they can be butting heads. Sometimes it can just go stale, a bit drab. And this isn't what the masculine needs. He doesn't need more of that kind of like heavy, burdensome energy in the relationship, because he's probably experiencing that in his work life, and whatever other responsibilities he's holding. So if a woman is kind of maliciously withholding her love, her softness, because she thinks he's not good enough, this will impact his self-esteem. All right, another one which I have picked up from Connor Beaton is women demeaning men's activities. Okay, so whatever that is, martial arts, men's groups, DIY, hell knows, whatever nerdy hobby you've got, which you are happy to nerd out with your buddies, your guy buddies. And if that is criticized or demeaned, this can really impact a man's kind of self-esteem or regard. It's kind of shaming, it's humiliating. All right, that's the core thing. So women need to understand, like, hey, men need their man cave, they need their men's time, all right? And to criticize or shame him for that is a surefire way to rob him of his masculine power. All right, this is a pretty long list. I'm sure it's not exhausted, and there's many other things, but hopefully this gives you a good sense of what can be used against you, all right, to rob you of your masculine power. All right, thanks for watching. Do check out some of the other videos where I talk about retaining your masculine energy in relationships, how to overcome nice guys, and just navigating this mess which is modern day relationships. And if you're new to the channel, please do hit subscribe, like the video. That helps the algorithm, helps me grow the channel. Thank you very much.